Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about this area right here, which I'm calling the equalizer, and because it tends to do that, tends to equalize your image between the highs and the lows. This function originally started as a highlight recovery. You can see this picture has a lot of highlights in it that are kind of washed out, but it turns out with most pictures that the highlights are still there. They're just very compressed in the range of the light, and they're very hard to get to, and so it does take some functionality to get them out without messing with the rest of the picture. For example, I can bring out these highlights here, but you can see it starts to make everything dark, and so I've got the highlights back, but now the rest of the picture doesn't look very good, and so there definitely is kind of an art to it in terms of image processing. You can see that there's a whole lot of functionality here. Most of this is going to be removed. It's just a lot of testing right now, but I have this highlight recovery section where that's what this originally was. So you would move the slider out and it would recover the highlights in that high range without really touching much of the rest of the picture. And so you can see that's exactly what it's doing right there. And so as I slide it forward, you can see that it really changes a lot more of the image. And so between the strength of what you're doing and how it looks at your image, I mean, you can make it way too dark, obviously, but you can also decide where the right spot for it is. And like I said, you can add some definition to it and do a lot of other things. You can lift some shadows, you know, if you want to get those details back. You can feather it, and you can do all sorts of things. And so, like with this one, for example, the equalization works with the highlights. If you go this way, it works with the highlights first and brings those down, and then whatever it's doing to your image, it will work with the shadows this way, and so that's why it looks more contrasty. And so the idea is that this is one function of this, and then you can go in and play with like the midtone contrast and the contrast and get what you want. But there's also a lot of other things that you can do with this function. For example, there's something called image equalization, where what it will do is, let me get the midtone contrast back, where what it will do is it will essentially equalize your image. And you can see it doesn't look that great right there, but since it's equalized, it really gives the contrast and other functions kind of a place to shine. And like I said, you can basically decide how much you want it to operate on your image versus, or rather how it operates on your image versus how much it operates on your image. And you can see that this one, in a way, I think looks better than the highlight recovery one, because it's operating on the entire image, bringing the highlights down without really touching the shadows. And so that's one thing that you can do there. And then, like I said, you can also then use the other controls to get what you want. And then if you look at this picture for a minute, let me bring it back a little bit and brighten it up a bit. So if you look at this picture for a second, it looks pretty good. And then if you look at the original, suddenly it's just, wow, look at all that brightness there. And so it's just a matter of finding what you like. Like some people might like it darker, some people might like it lighter. It just really depends. You might want to put a vignette on it or whatever. I think this one gets too dark with a vignette. So that is one part of it. Now let me show you another part.